The alarm on my wrist screamed before I even opened my eyes. Something had crashed less than a mile from my outpost, and the tremor still rattled the walls around me. My name is Daniel Hart, and I run a survey post alone on a dead moon called Threnody 9. No crew, no visitors, no voice but my own for 11 straight months. That night, the silence broke in the worst possible way. I grabbed my suit and ran outside before I even thought it through. A trail of black smoke rose from a crater half a mile away, and metal groaned somewhere inside it like something was still alive. I should have waited for backup that did not exist. Instead, I ran straight toward the wreck with my heart hammering against my ribs. The crater held the broken half of a cargo pod, still glowing at the edges from the fall. Steam hissed out of a cracked container inside it, and through the fog I saw 5 large eggs, each one the size of a beach ball, pulsing with a faint blue light. A melted tag near the container read, "Live cargo, exotic species, do not approach." I approached anyway. The moment I touched the container, an emergency broadcast crackled through my helmet. It was a company signal, cold and automatic, warning that unstable cargo had been lost during transit, and that any unauthorized contact would be treated as theft under Galactic transport law. I had maybe minutes before a company drone somewhere caught the signal too, and reported my location straight to headquarters. I made my choice in seconds. I hauled the container onto my back and ran for my outpost, boots slipping on loose rock, lungs burning inside my suit. Behind me, the crater lit up one more time as another piece of the wreck buckled and dropped. I did not look back. I sealed the outpost door behind me and dropped to my knees beside the container, gasping. The eggs were still glowing, but the light was fading fast. My power grid was never built to keep anything alive except me. I tore open an old heater, rerouted cables with shaking hands, and prayed to anyone listening that I would not lose the last living things I had touched in almost a year. The first crack came just after midnight. A thin line split across one shell, then another, and I stood frozen, unsure whether I was about to meet something gentle or something that could end me right there on the floor. What climbed out was small, wet, and trembling, with narrow wings pressed against its body and eyes the color of a dying star. It looked straight at me, and before I could move, it climbed my arm and pressed itself against my neck like it had known me its whole life. 4 more hatched over the next 2 days. I did not plan to name them, but a man alone for months needs someone to talk to, even if they cannot answer. I called them Ash, Pebble, Wick, Marrow, and Soot. Ash was the boldest, always first to test his wings. Pebble was tiny and never left my boot. Wick chewed through anything she could reach. Marrow watched me with eyes that seemed far too intelligent for a creature only 2 days old. Soot barely moved unless she was near me, usually curled across my shoulders like a living scarf. I learned fast that these creatures were called Vareshi wormlings, a species known for imprinting completely on whoever was near them the moment they hatched. That someone was me. Not a scientist, not a handler, just a lonely surveyor who happened to be standing there when 5 ancient instincts decided who they belonged to forever. 3 weeks later, my supply drone sent a routine report back to company headquarters, and a photo of Ash sleeping in my food storage went with it by mistake. Within a day, I received a message that hit like a blow to the chest. The company claimed the wormlings as lost property, worth more money than I would earn in 10 years combined, and announced that a retrieval team would arrive within the month to take them back by force if necessary. I read the message twice, my hands trembling with something between fear and anger. Pebble was asleep on my boot. Wick was mid-bite through my only spare strap. Marrow stared at me like she already understood every word on that screen. I typed one line back before I could stop myself. "They are not cargo. Come and try." The team arrived faster than promised, 3 days early, catching me off guard while I was checking the outer hatch seals. Their leader introduced herself as Grace Whitfield, sharp-eyed, all business, flanked by 2 handlers, carrying capture nets built for creatures far more dangerous than 5 hatchlings. The moment they stepped through the door, Ash let out a scream that rattled every panel on the wall. His siblings shot out from hiding at full speed, forming a wall of teeth and wings between the handlers and me, before I could even raise a hand. Grace signaled her team to stop. She crouched slowly, studying the 5 of them fanned protectively in front of a single unarmed human. "This is not normal juvenile behavior," she said, almost to herself. "This looks like true imprint bonding, and that only happens under very specific conditions." I told her those conditions were 5 cracked eggs and 1 very cold reactor room. She studied me for a long moment, then studied the way Marrow refused to blink, the way Soot had wrapped herself protectively around my ankle, the way Pebble bared teeth barely bigger than rice grains at a stranger twice her size. Grace turned to her team and told them to stand down, then opened a direct channel to her superiors right there in my doorway. The next 3 days felt longer than my entire 11 months on that moon. Company lawyers argued over frequencies I was not allowed to hear. A xenobiologist somewhere in another system sent detailed notes about wormling separation trauma. An ethics board I did not even know existed weighed in on a case nobody had prepared for. I sat outside my outpost the whole time, with all 5 of them piled against me, my future and theirs, both hanging on a decision made by people who had never once set foot on this rock. Grace returned alone on the 4th day, carrying a data pad instead of a capture net. She told me the biology reports were clear. Separating a fully imprinted wormling clutch from their bonded guardian carried a real risk of permanent harm, possibly fatal for the smaller ones. The board had reached a decision nobody expected. Custody would transfer to me, fully and permanently, against every normal policy the company had ever written. I stared at the pad in her hands, afraid to believe it, until I saw my name already filled into the guardian field. My throat tightened as I signed it, Pebble asleep against my signing hand the entire time, Ash curling his tail around my wrist, like he already understood exactly what that signature meant. Grace watched the 5 of them settle around me, no longer defensive, simply close. "In 30 years doing this job," she said quietly, "I have never seen anything choose a person the way they chose you. Maybe the rules never accounted for someone who stayed up 3 nights fixing a broken heater for eggs he had never even seen hatch. That was 6 months ago. My contract on Threnody 9 still has time left, but I stopped counting the days a long time back. Ash is nearly as tall as me now, and still insists on sleeping across the foot of my bunk every night. Marrow has started understanding full sentences, which is either impressive or a little terrifying depending on the day. Wick has moved from chewing straps to chewing spare cables, much to the annoyance of my old maintenance drone. Pebble still refuses to leave my boot no matter how much she grows. Soot still drapes herself over my shoulders every evening like clockwork, and I still let her, because some habits are worth keeping forever. I came to this moon expecting nothing but silence and empty rock formations. Instead, a crashing pod, 1 impossible decision, and 5 small creatures who refused to let go turned an empty outpost into something that finally felt like home. I used to count down the days until I could leave this place behind. Now I find myself wondering what it will feel like the day I finally have to say goodbye to it, knowing I will be taking the only family I have ever truly chosen right along with me.